The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display showed the latest intelligence reports. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zelthrian Empire studied the data with his 4 compound eyes, each one focusing on different aspects of the troubling information. The newest species to join the galactic community had done something unprecedented, something that made even the most hardened military commanders uncomfortable. Humans had said no. "This cannot be accurate," growled General Thaxmore, his scaled hide bristling with agitation. The Korthian warrior had conquered 17 star systems in his lifetime, but the small datapad in his clawed hands made him feel something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. The human delegation had been invited to the council chambers on Proxima Station 3 rotations ago. It was supposed to be a formality. Every species that achieved faster-than-light travel received the same welcome. They would be shown their place in the galactic hierarchy, assigned their tribute quotas, and given their designated sectors for resource extraction. Some species negotiated, some begged, a few even tried to fight. None had ever simply refused to participate. "The translation matrices have been verified 17 times, replied Dr. Yinthara, her crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. The humans were quite clear in their response. They acknowledged our authority but declined to submit to it. Admiral Zexkar leaned forward in his floating command throne. The aquatic Morthak rarely left his environmental suit, but his bioluminescent patterns were visible through the transparent aluminum, flashing in sequences that indicated deep concern. Declined? Species do not decline the Council's authority. Compliance is not optional. The human response had been delivered by their ambassador, a small female called Sarah Chen. She had listened politely to the Council's demands, asked several clarifying questions, and then delivered her government's position with what the translation systems identified as a smile. "Earth appreciates the invitation to join the galactic community," she had said, her voice calm and steady. "However, we must respectfully decline to participate in your tribute system or accept territorial restrictions. We look forward to establishing mutually beneficial trade relationships and cultural exchanges with any species interested in voluntary cooperation." The chamber had erupted in confusion. Species did not volunteer for cooperation. They submitted, or they were made to submit. "Perhaps they simply do not understand the consequences of defiance," suggested Counselor Vethman, his insectoid limbs clicking nervously. "They are a young species. Their expansion beyond their home system only began 2 of their decades ago." General Thaxamor's laugh was like grinding stone. "Oh, they will understand soon enough. The enforcement fleet has been dispatched. 3 dreadnoughts and their escort vessels should be sufficient to convince these humans of their error." The enforcement fleet was the Council's traditional response to non-compliance, a show of force that had never failed to bring recalcitrant species to heel. The sight of the massive vessels entering a system's outer boundary was usually enough. If demonstration proved insufficient, a few orbital bombardments of uninhabited worlds typically clarified matters. "The fleet should reach the human home system within 2 rotations," Admiral Zexkar reported. "Commander Vorthak has been instructed to offer the humans one final opportunity to reconsider their position before beginning enforcement protocols." Ambassador Kethvar remained silent, studying the intelligence reports with growing unease. The humans were indeed young, having only developed interstellar travel 23 of their years ago. Their expansion had been rapid but limited, with colonies in only 14 systems. Their military vessels appeared primitive, using kinetic weapons and crude missile systems rather than the energy weapons favored by more advanced species. Yet something about the data troubled him. The humans had expanded in an unusual pattern, establishing colonies not just on habitable worlds, but on asteroids, moons, and even spaceborne facilities. Their population growth was explosive, and their industrial capacity seemed to increase exponentially with each passing year. More disturbing were the reports from trading vessels that had encountered human ships. The humans were invariably polite and professional, but their crews displayed an alertness that reminded veteran spacers of military personnel. Even their civilian vessels mounted weapon systems that, while primitive, were maintained in perfect condition. "There is something else," Dr. Yinthara said, her crystalline form dimming slightly. "Our intelligence assets report that the humans have begun what they call a general mobilization across all their territories." "Mobilization for what?" demanded General Thaxmore. "Unknown. Our assets indicate massive increases in industrial production, recall of civilian vessels, and movement of population to protected facilities. The humans claim it is a routine emergency preparedness exercise." Admiral Zexkar's patterns shifted to confused yellow spirals. Emergency preparedness. What emergency could they possibly be preparing for? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Species that submitted to council authority received protection from external threats. The galaxy had been largely peaceful for over 3,000 years, with the council's military might discouraging any attempts at interstellar warfare. Ambassador Kethvar finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. "Perhaps we should consider the possibility that the humans do not view our enforcement action as protection, but as the emergency they are preparing for." The chamber fell silent again. The concept was almost incomprehensible. Species feared pirates, natural disasters, or technological failures. They did not prepare for war against the Council itself. "Impossible," General Thaxmore declared. "They have seen our fleet compositions. They know our capabilities. No species would be foolish enough to oppose the Council's military might." "And yet," Ambassador Kethvar continued, "they show no signs of reconsidering their position. Their industrial mobilization continues to accelerate. Their civilian population has been relocated to hardened facilities. Their military vessels have taken defensive positions throughout their territory." 2 rotations passed with agonizing slowness. The council chamber remained in constant session as reports filtered in from the enforcement fleet. Commander Vorthak had entered the human home system as planned, his 3 dreadnoughts and 20 escort vessels forming an imposing formation near the outer planetary boundaries. The human response had been swift and professional. A small diplomatic vessel had approached under a flag of truce, and the human ambassador, Sarah Chen, had been granted permission to board the flagship. "The humans have been given their final warning," Commander Vorthak reported via subspace communication. "Ambassador Chen listened to our ultimatum and requested 12 of their hours to consult with her government. I have granted this delay as a courtesy." General Thaxmore nodded approvingly. "Standard protocol. The extra time will allow them to appreciate the hopelessness of their situation. No doubt they are already preparing their surrender." But 12 hours passed without communication from the human government. Then 24. The enforcement fleet maintained its position, growing increasingly uncomfortable as human vessels continued their movements throughout the system. Not aggressive movements, but purposeful ones that suggested careful preparation. "Something is wrong," Ambassador Kethvar muttered, studying the latest tactical displays. "Look at these patterns. The humans are not panicking. They are not attempting to flee. They are positioning themselves as if—" "As if what?" Admiral Zexkar demanded. "As if they intend to fight." The statement sent ripples of disbelief through the chamber. Fight? Against a council enforcement fleet? The concept was so far outside normal parameters that most species lacked words for it. Commander Vorthak's next report confirmed their worst fears. "The humans have responded to our ultimatum." Ambassador Chen delivered their government's message personally. The message was brief, and delivered in the same polite tone that had characterized all human communications. "Earth reiterates its position regarding Council authority. We regret that peaceful resolution appears impossible, but we cannot accept subjugation. We advise the fleet to withdraw from our territory to avoid unnecessary conflict. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species representatives chittered, roared, and flashed in languages that the translation systems struggled to process. The humans had not just refused to submit, they had threatened the enforcement fleet. "Begin orbital bombardment of their outer colonies," General Thaxmore commanded. "These humans need a demonstration of reality." But Commander Vorthak's response carried an edge of uncertainty that silenced the chamber. "General, I must report unusual readings from the human positions. Our sensors are detecting what appear to be massive defensive installations on asteroids and moons throughout the system. Additionally, there are energy signatures indicating the presence of military vessels far exceeding our initial estimates." "How many vessels?" Admiral Zexkar asked, his patterns shifting to worried orange. "Unknown. They appear to be using sophisticated stealth technology. Our best estimates suggest at least 200 combat-capable ships, with potentially more in concealed positions." The number sent shockwaves through the council. The intelligence reports had indicated the humans possessed perhaps 50 military vessels. Where had the others come from? How had they hidden such a substantial fleet from council surveillance? Ambassador Kethvar studied the tactical displays with growing dread. The human positions were not random. They formed overlapping fields of fire that would create devastating crossfires for any attacking force. The asteroids and moons they had fortified controlled key gravitational and navigational points throughout the system. "These are not the dispositions of a primitive species," he said quietly. "These humans know exactly what they are doing." The realization struck the chamber like a physical blow. For 3,000 years, the Council had faced species that submitted because they understood the futility of resistance. Pirates and rebels might fight from desperation, but established civilizations recognized superior force and yielded to it. The humans appeared to be doing neither. They were not submitting, but neither were they fighting from desperation. Their preparations suggested careful planning and confidence in their capabilities. "Commander Vorthak," General Thaxmore growled, "you have the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Begin bombardment operations immediately. These humans need to learn their place." The pause before the commander's response lasted an eternity. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note that no council member had ever heard from a fleet commander before. Doubt. "General, I must advise caution. The human defensive positions are extensive. I recommend waiting for reinforcements before beginning offensive operations." The suggestion that a council enforcement fleet might need reinforcements to handle a single primitive species was so shocking that several representatives lost consciousness. Others began emergency communications with their home governments, seeking instructions for a situation that had no precedent in galactic history. Ambassador Kethvar watched the chaos and felt a chill settle in his heart. The humans had done more than refuse council authority. They had created doubt in the minds of those who had never known doubt. They had made the galaxy's most powerful military force hesitate. And they were still waiting, patient and calm in their positions, for the Council's next move. The war that no one had believed possible was about to begin. And for the first time in 3 millennia, the outcome was uncertain. Commander Vorthak had lived through 47 space battles, conquered 12 star systems, and never once questioned the superiority of Council forces. As he stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human defensive positions with instruments that cost more than most civilizations' entire military budgets, he felt something new creeping into his thoughts: respect for an enemy. The humans had given him 12 hours to withdraw. He had responded with weapons fire. The first target had been a human mining station on asteroid XK-739, a facility that appeared to house civilian operations. Standard doctrine called for destroying non-military targets to demonstrate the price of resistance. The asteroid's destruction should have sent a clear message to the human leadership about the futility of their position. Instead, it had revealed something that made Vorthak's combat-hardened crew stare at their displays in disbelief. The asteroid had not simply exploded. As the Council's plasma bombardment reached its surface, massive sections of rock and metal had peeled away like flower petals, revealing a crystalline core that pulsed with energy. Defensive turrets emerged from hidden positions, their barrels tracking toward the enforcement fleet with mechanical precision. The mining station had been a disguise. Underneath lay a fortress that bristled with weapons capable of engaging capital ships. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Vorthak commanded, as energy beams lanced toward his fleet. The first human volley missed by design, passing close enough to light up every proximity alarm on his vessels. A warning shot that said very clearly, "We could have hit you if we wanted to." That had been 8 hours ago. Since then, the situation had deteriorated beyond anything in Vorthak's experience. Every target his fleet had engaged turned out to be more than it appeared. Civilian space stations were heavily armed fortresses. Mining operations were naval bases in disguise. Even small transport vessels revealed weapon systems that could threaten escort frigates. The humans had turned their entire star system into a fortress, and they had done it without anyone noticing. "Status report," Vorthak demanded, his officers scrambling to process information that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Sir, we have engaged 17 human positions," his tactical officer reported, tentacles trembling with stress. "0 confirmed kills. Estimated human casualties, none. Our casualties, 14 dead, 37 wounded, and the destroyer Keth Morris has lost primary power." The numbers were impossible. The enforcement fleet possessed firepower capable of cracking planets. They were facing primitives armed with kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Yet after 8 hours of combat, they had accomplished nothing except proving that the humans could hurt them. "How is this possible?" whispered his communication officer. "Our intelligence indicated these humans had only basic military technology." Vorthak was beginning to suspect that Council intelligence had seen exactly what the humans wanted them to see. Every report, every observation, every piece of data had painted a picture of a young species with limited capabilities. But species with limited capabilities did not fight three-dimensional battles across an entire star system while maintaining perfect coordination between hundreds of military units. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human vessel Defiance," his communication officer announced. "They are requesting permission to board under flag of truce." "Denied. We do not negotiate with rebels." "Sir, they say they have important information regarding prisoner treatment and combat protocols." Vorthak paused. The humans had captured the crew of the destroyer that had lost power, but instead of the expected execution or torture, they had provided medical aid and comfortable quarters. The gesture was both tactically unnecessary and strategically puzzling. Grant them permission to dock, but full security protocols. 20 minutes later, Vorthak found himself facing the most dangerous human he had ever encountered. The being that entered his ready room appeared unremarkable by galactic standards. Bipedal, carbon-based, approximately 1.7 meters tall. But something about the way she moved, the way her eyes assessed everything they touched, marked her as predator in a way that transcended species boundaries. "Colonel Sarah Martinez, Terran Defense Force," she said, offering what his cultural database identified as a human greeting gesture. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "You are not Ambassador Chen," Vorthak observed. "No, sir. Ambassador Chen handles diplomacy. I handle other matters." The distinction sent an uncomfortable chill through Vorthak's nervous system. This human was not a diplomat or politician. She was something else entirely. "What do you want?" he asked. "To save lives, sir," Yours and mine. Martinez settled into the chair across from his desk with fluid grace that reminded him of apex predators from his homeworld. Your fleet is currently positioned in what we call a kill box. You have been there for 8 hours, and we have allowed you to remain there to demonstrate that we do not wish unnecessary death. You speak as though you control this engagement, Vorthak said carefully. Sir, with respect, we have been controlling this engagement since the moment you entered our system. Martinez activated a small device that projected a holographic display of the local space. Your fleet is here. These red dots represent concealed defensive positions that have been tracking your vessels since arrival. These blue dots represent mobile units that have been shadowing your formation. Vorthak stared at the display. If the human data was accurate, his fleet was not just outnumbered, it was surrounded by forces that had remained completely hidden from his sensors. Impossible. Our detection systems would have identified any hostile vessels. Sir, you have been detecting what we wanted you to detect. Martinez manipulated the display, showing energy signatures that appeared and disappeared at will. Stealth technology is not beyond human capabilities. Neither is electronic warfare, signal deception, or tactical misdirection. The implications struck Vorthak like a physical blow. If the humans could hide this many military assets from Council sensors, what else had they concealed? How many other systems contained hidden defenses? How large was their actual fleet? What do you propose? He asked. Withdraw your forces from human territory. We will guarantee safe passage and provide escort to ensure no misunderstandings occur during your departure. And if I refuse? Martinez was quiet for a long moment, and something shifted in her expression that made Vorthak's predator sense scream warnings. Sir, you are currently facing defensive forces. If you refuse to withdraw, you will face our elite units. Elite units? Human Special Operations Forces, sir. The soldiers you encountered today are our regular military. They are tasked with system defense and maintaining prepared positions. Martinez paused, and her next words carried a weight that seemed to compress the air in the room. Our elite forces operate under different rules and with different objectives. Vorthak had commanded fleets for 3 decades. He understood the distinction between defensive troops and assault specialists. Every military organization had such units, but something in the human's tone suggested a difference in degree that became a difference in kind. You threaten us? No, sir. I am trying to prevent a catastrophe for both our species. Before Vorthak could respond, his tactical officer's voice crackled through the communication system. Commander, we have a problem. Sensors are detecting new contacts throughout the system. Multiple vessels emerging from concealed positions. Martinez checked her own device and nodded. That would be Ranger Battalion 7 and the 1st Special Operations Group. They have been given clearance to begin reconnaissance operations. Reconnaissance? Yes, sir. They are currently identifying high-value targets within your fleet for potential elimination missions. Vorthak's blood turned to ice water. The humans had just announced that their special forces were selecting targets for assassination within his own vessels. The casual way Martinez delivered this information was somehow more terrifying than if she had shouted threats. This is an act of war, he managed. Sir, you began bombardment of civilian installations 8 hours ago. From our perspective, this war started when you fired the first shot. Martinez stood, her movement precise and controlled. My people have assigned me to offer you one final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. And if we choose to fight? Then you will discover why the rest of the galaxy fears humanity, Commander. Not because we are primitive, not because we are weak, but because we approach warfare differently than any other species you have encountered. Something in her tone made Vorthak ask the question he dreaded to voice. How differently? Other species fight until victory becomes impossible. Then surrender to preserve their forces and populations. Humans fight until victory is achieved, regardless of cost. Martinez moved toward the door, then paused. Commander, your fleet represents the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Our forces have been preparing for this engagement for 2 years. We know your capabilities, your tactics, your strengths, and your weaknesses. We have planned for every possible scenario except one. Which scenario? The one where you withdraw peacefully and allow both our species to survive this encounter. After Martinez left, Vorthak stood alone in his ready room, studying the tactical displays with new understanding. The humans had not been hiding their military capabilities out of fear. They had been hiding them to maintain the element of surprise. His communication officer's voice interrupted his thoughts. Sir, we are receiving multiple priority transmissions from the fleet. All ship commanders are requesting immediate tactical consultation. Patch them through. For the next hour, Vorthak listened to reports that redefined his understanding of possible. Human forces were not just present throughout the system. They were actively maneuvering in ways that violated every principle of space combat he had ever learned. Single human ships were engaging entire squadrons and winning through tactics that seemed to ignore basic physics. Small human units were appearing in locations where no ships should be able to survive, delivering precision strikes against specific systems, then vanishing before counterattack could be organized. Sir, his tactical officer reported, voice trembling with disbelief. The humans appear to have forces positioned throughout our formation, not ships, sir. Individual soldiers. They are somehow operating in open space without environmental suits. Vorthak closed his eyes and felt the certainty of 3,000 years of galactic dominance crumble around him. The humans had not just prepared for war, they had redefined it, and they were still offering him a chance to withdraw. The most terrifying realization was not that the humans could destroy his fleet, it was that they were choosing not to. Yet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened as reports from the enforcement fleet grew increasingly impossible to believe. Admiral Zexkar floated in his environmental suit, bioluminescent patterns cycling through colors that had no names in most languages. The communications from Commander Vorthak had stopped making sense 3 hours ago. Repeat the last transmission, General Thaxmore demanded, his scales rippling with agitation that bordered on panic. The holographic display activated, showing Vorthak's image flickering with interference. His usual composed demeanor had cracked, replaced by something that experienced military officers recognized but refused to name. Defeat. Council Control, this is Commander Vorthak. I am declaring a tactical withdrawal from the Sol system. Repeat. Full tactical withdrawal. Human forces have demonstrated capabilities that exceed all previous intelligence estimates by several orders of magnitude. Explain, Ambassador Kethvar said quietly. Sir, the humans are not using conventional space warfare tactics. They are using methods that our doctrine does not account for, employing technologies that should not exist, and demonstrating coordination that suggests either telepathic communication or artificial intelligence assistance beyond our capabilities to detect or counter. The chamber fell silent, except for the ambient sounds of life support systems and the nervous chittering of various species trying to process information that challenged fundamental assumptions about galactic military science. Elaborate on human capabilities, Admiral Zexkar commanded. Vorthak's image wavered as another interference burst disrupted the signal. Sir, human elite forces appear to be capable of individual space combat operations. Our sensors detect armored figures moving through vacuum at velocities approaching that of light fighters. These individuals are engaging our vessels directly, penetrating hull armor with portable weapons, and conducting precision sabotage operations against specific systems. General Thaxmore's laugh was hollow. Impossible. No organic being can survive unprotected space exposure, much less engage in combat operations. Sir, I am transmitting tactical footage. The holographic display shifted to show external camera feeds from various Council vessels. What they showed defied every principle of known physics and biology. Human figures in advanced armor moved through space with the grace of creatures born to vacuum, using propulsion systems that left no detectable energy signature. They approached Council vessels like ghosts, attached devices to hull plating with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of alien ship design, then disappeared before defensive systems could acquire target locks. "This is Captain Rex Morrison, 1st Special Operations Group," came a voice over the tactical feed. "All Council vessels, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for boarding operations. Resistance will be met with appropriate force." The voice was calm, professional, and utterly confident in a way that sent chills through experienced military commanders. This was not bravado or desperation. This was certainty. "Sir," Vorthak continued, "the humans have demonstrated the ability to board our vessels at will, disable specific systems without causing casualties, and withdraw before we can mount effective resistance. They have also shown restraint that I find unsettling." Restraint? They could have destroyed my entire fleet within the first hour of engagement. Instead, they have disabled our weapons, communications, and propulsion systems while leaving life support intact. They are not trying to kill us, sir. They are demonstrating that they could kill us whenever they choose. Ambassador Kethvar studied the tactical displays with growing horror. The human approach to warfare was not just advanced, it was surgical, precise, controlled. They were conducting military operations with the same methodical care that other species applied to scientific research. "What are their demands?" he asked. "Immediate withdrawal of all Council forces from human territory, recognition of human sovereignty over their current systems, establishment of formal diplomatic relations based on mutual respect rather than submission." Vorthak paused, his expression grim. "And, sir, they want a formal guarantee that the Council will never again attempt to enforce authority over human space." The demands were unprecedented in galactic history. No species had ever dictated terms to the Council, but the evidence streaming from the Sol system suggested that humanity possessed the capability to enforce their will whether the Council agreed or not. "Sir," Vorthak's voice carried a note of urgency, "I have additional intelligence that the Council needs to hear." "Proceed." "The human forces currently engaged are identified as defensive units and special operations groups. According to captured personnel files, these represent less than 3% of their total military capability." The statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If the forces that had neutralized a Council enforcement fleet represented only 3% of human military strength, what did their full capability look like? "Furthermore," Vorthak continued, "interrogation of captured personnel indicates that human military doctrine includes something they call total war. Sir, if diplomacy fails, they do not plan to fight for territory or resources. They plan to fight for survival, and they will use every weapon at their disposal." General Thaxmore leaned forward. "What weapons?" "Unknown, sir, but human prisoners speak of planet crackers and stellar engineering, as if these are routine military options. They also reference the Geneva Conventions as restrictions they follow during limited conflicts, with the implication that those restrictions would not apply in a war for survival." The Council chamber erupted in chaos as species representatives began emergency consultations with their home governments. The prospect of facing an enemy that treated planetary bombardment as a conventional tactic was terrifying enough. The suggestion that they possessed weapons capable of stellar manipulation was beyond comprehension. "Sir," came another voice over the communication channel, "this is Staff Sergeant Chen, 3rd Ranger Battalion. I have been authorized to address the Council directly." Ambassador Kethvar recognized the name. Chen was one of the humans who had been captured during the early fighting, then released after receiving medical treatment that exceeded Council standards. Proceed, Sergeant Chen. Honorable Council members, I speak for the Terran Defense Force and the unified government of humanity. We wish to avoid unnecessary bloodshed and establish peaceful relations with all species willing to treat us as equals rather than subjects. The human's voice carried a strange quality that the translation systems identified as sincerity mixed with steel-hard determination. However, we will not submit to external authority. Our species has experience with oppressive governments, and we have sworn never to accept such rule again. If the Council insists on enforcing submission, we will resist with every weapon and tactic at our disposal. You threaten the Council? General Thaxmore demanded. No, sir. We promise the Council that continued aggression will result in consequences that extend far beyond the current engagement. Humanity has been preparing for interstellar conflict since our first encounter with galactic civilization. We have weapons, tactics, and technologies that we prefer never to use, but we will use them if forced to defend our freedom. The transmission paused, filled with static that carried an ominous quality. Sir, I am transmitting coordinates to 3 uninhabited systems near Council territory. If you wish to see a demonstration of human military capability, we will provide one. These systems contain nothing but asteroids and gas giants. We will show you what happens when humanity stops exercising restraint. Admiral Zexkar's patterns shifted to urgent red spirals. What kind of demonstration? Sir, we will show you why other species should fear not just humanity, but what happens when humanity decides that diplomacy has failed. The coordinates appeared on Council displays, showing 3 systems that contained no life, no valuable resources, nothing but space debris and gas clouds. Perfect testing grounds for weapons too dangerous to use near inhabited worlds. Choose one system, Sergeant Chen continued. Send observation vessels to monitor the demonstration, then decide if the Council wishes to continue this conflict. Ambassador Kethavar studied the star charts with mounting dread. The humans were offering to demonstrate their ultimate capabilities against lifeless targets. The implication was clear. See what we can do to empty space, then imagine what we could do to your worlds. We require time to deliberate, he said. You have 6 hours, sir. After that time, we begin full military operations, not just against your fleet, but against any Council facility or vessel found in human territory. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. 6 hours later, the observation post in the Kepler 442 system sent its final transmission. The human demonstration had lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the system's primary star was gone, not destroyed in a conventional sense, but converted into something else, a perfectly stable artificial construct that generated controlled energy at levels that exceeded most civilizations' total power production. The humans had not just moved a star, they had rebuilt it. Commander Vorthak's fleet began its withdrawal from Sol System 3 hours ahead of the deadline. As his vessels limped toward Council space, escorted by human forces that could have destroyed them effortlessly, he transmitted his final report to the Council. Sirs, I recommend immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership. They have offered terms for peaceful coexistence, and I strongly advise accepting those terms without modification. The humans are not a primitive species. They are something entirely new in galactic history. New how? Ambassador Kethavar asked. Sir, every species the Council has encountered views warfare as an extension of politics, conducted according to established rules and limitations. The humans view warfare as applied engineering. They do not fight according to rules, they fight according to physics. And they have mastered physics in ways that make our most advanced technologies look like children's toys. The Council voted unanimously to accept human terms. The formal recognition of human sovereignty was signed within a galactic standard week, along with non-aggression pacts that granted humanity complete autonomy within their designated space. But the real effect of the conflict was not diplomatic. It was psychological. Word of human capabilities spread throughout the galaxy at the speed of rumor and fear. Species that had never heard of humanity began developing contingency plans for human contact. Military organizations studied the tactical reports and redesigned their entire strategic doctrines. The phrase human elite forces became synonymous with impossibility made manifest. Stories spread of soldiers who could walk through vacuum, weapons that could reshape stars, and tactics that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than limitations. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, not because they were aggressive or cruel, but because they represented something unprecedented, a species that had developed warfare not as an art or science, but as an ultimate form of problem-solving. And they had solved the problem of Council dominance by demonstrating that some problems had solutions too terrible to contemplate. In the years that followed, humanity became the one species that no one wanted to fight, not because they were invincible, but because victory against them would cost more than defeat to anyone else. The humans had shown restraint in their first interstellar conflict. No one wanted to discover what they would do if restraint was not an option.